Fishing. Fishing, hunting, wildlife management, resource protection, habitat conservation, public outreach, and education.
It's what we do.
It's what we live for.
Simply put, conserving wildlife literally means the wise use of wildlife. And that's at the root of everything we do. Oklahoma is one of the most species-diverse states in the nation. Making sure opportunities exist for hunters, anglers, and all those who appreciate wildlife is not only our job.
It's our passion.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. From sunup to sundown, and sometimes all night long. The employees of our agency are relentless in their dedication to a job well done. The science behind wildlife conservation is constantly evolving, and our biologists are leading the way with groundbreaking and cutting-edge techniques that the entire scientific community benefits from. If that's not enough to make you proud, then consider this. We've been doing all this since our agency's birth in 1909, without using a dime of taxpayer money. That's because the Wildlife Department is designed as a user-pay, user-benefit agency.
Commissioner Brewster, absent. Commissioner Barwick. Here. Commissioner Mabry. Here. Commissioner Holder.
Here.
Commissioner Zelps.
Here.
Commissioner Dillingham.
Here.
Commissioner Kane.
Here.
Commissioner Gaddis.
Here. And the invocation is Wade Farrar today. You stand, please.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, JD, would you introduce our guests, please?
Well, we obviously have a lot of guests here with us today, but we're going to get to most of them throughout the course of the meeting. So I will mention that we have signed up here John Weir with the Prescribed Burn Association, who will be up in the agenda later as well. Ed Folks, Moore Public Schools, who will also be introduced a little later in the agenda, and Coach Jerry Hammerski, Coach Jeremy Atterbury from Altus Intermediate School. Hopefully the way they're laughing at me that I didn't butcher those names, but I'm sorry if I did. Hammersley. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll blame it on that. Thank you for being here, and Laura McIver, who's typically here, sends her best, but she is not feeling well this morning, so yeah, that's it.
All right, next on the agenda, we'll have Nels Rodefeld making some introductions and presenting some awards.
Commissioners, it's my pleasure to introduce Kelly Boyer. Kelly is our
Archery in the Schools coordinator and also coordinates varsity archery, and he's going to introduce the teams.
Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well today. Come to you again today with a little bit of congratulations today. I have some in the audience here, some outstanding young people that surely need our recognition and our congratulations. And I'm going to start real quick with our individual. Ethan Doe, if you will stand up, please. Ethan goes to Northmore Elementary, and he was a part of the third place state team this year, and he received third place high individual honors at the National Archery Shoot this year. So we wanted to bring you up here and congratulate you, Ethan, for your accomplishments, and you keep at it, okay?
Absolutely, thanks. Congratulations.
And next up, all these beautiful bright faces for a Monday morning. We have Altus Intermediate. If you guys will stand up real quick. Altus Intermediate's elementary was our top team this year in our state shoot, and also they won top team at nationals this year in the elementary division. So they kind of swept it this year. I'm very, very proud of them and very, very excited to see where they can go forward. So congratulations to you all as well.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yes.
And like I said, I'm very excited to see what these very young people mature into and grow in this sport that we obviously all love and enjoy. And thank you to the coaches for the time and the diligency that you put into each one of these kids in the programs. I certainly appreciate it, everything that you do, especially last year and toughest times as it was. So thank you all again, and let's all give them a round of applause.
You gonna bring him up here? I think he's gonna bring him up here in front so we can get a picture with him.
Sure.
Coach, you've got enough planned today that they don't have to go back to school, though. Good.
I'm gonna get out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. Y'all want to scrunch in here?
John?
Okay, tell us where you need us, Don. Good. Oh, choir pose. Good job, Ethan.
Yes, congratulations, Ethan.
That's awesome. Thanks, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you, congratulations.
Oh, we're gonna do Altus.
That's gonna be a big picture there.
Might have to do 2 layers.
All ones in the back.
At that age. At that age, it's the girls in the back and the boys in the front.
He's right here.
Go down there with him.
You'll turn.
You don't wanna get down with him? Sure, you can finish.
Same way with the front. You'll turn
Oh, coach.
your shoulders like this. And help us squeeze it a little bit. You guys have done this before.
Rick, third place.
Well, good. Keep doing good, and we'll keep taking pictures.
What? Let's do 1, 2, 3, go Bulldogs. Huh?
Football struggling
1,
this
2,
year.
3, go Bulldogs!
Great job, great
Good
job.
job.
Congratulations, y'all.
So this group of kids that won nationals is the first ones that came to the
That's awesome.
Wow, okay. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job, Kelly.
Did you hear that? That they were the first ones to enter the program.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
See ya.
That looks like one of my jurors back there. All those officers.
All right, item number 7 on the agenda. We'll ask Bill Dinkins to come up.
Thank you, Chairwoman Gaddis. Good morning, Commissioners. The Wildlife Department's been a supporter of the National Bobwhite Conservation Initiative for years, and as part of that, there's a award, sometimes annual, given to an individual, recognizing them for their restoration for bobwhite and habitats. And in the past, y'all may recall that Commissioner Grondike, the late Alva Gregory, and Laura MacGyver with Well Forever received this award. This year's award recipient will be presented by Tel Judkins. Tel, if you want to come on up, our upland game biologist.
Thank you, Bill. Man, there's a lot of awards up here. It's going to be a good day. So, with the National Bobwhite Conservation Initiative and the National Bobwhite Technical Committee, I'm the state coordinator for Oklahoma as part of my position. And with that, each year I'm tasked with trying to figure out who is deserving of this award. And as Bill mentioned, the list is pretty distinguished, especially when you really zoom in and see the amazing things that they've done for bobwhite in this state. So this year I sat and tried to think on who's deserving of being added to that list. And quite simply, since I know we have a long agenda today, I'll just simply read the award letter that I submitted to the National Bobwhite Conservation Initiative. According to their website, the Oklahoma Prescribed Burn Association, or OPBA, is an incorporated nonprofit created to support local burn associations and develop new ones across the state. The OPBA's goals are to increase landowners' capacity to do neighbor-to-neighbor prescribed burns for reduction of fuel loads, wildlife habitat improvement, increasing grassland production, and enhancing public health and safety of all Oklahomans. Our goal, the OPBA, is to provide Oklahoma landowners with access to support, training, and equipment to safely implement prescribed fire on their lands. But to many landowners in Oklahoma, the OPBA is much more. This organization works hand in hand with state agencies such as the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, as well as NGOs like Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, towards a unified goal of reducing volatile fuel loads and improving wildlife habitat across the state. The OPBA provides workshops and field days annually that invite the public to come and learn about what the PBAs do and how they can help landowners in ultimately achieving their management goals. The leadership that OPBA President Mr. John Weir has provided this association with since its start in 2011 has been critical to its success. What started as one unit has been built up to 22 local chapters covering 36 of Oklahoma's 77 counties directly, and they do work in many more than just that. These chapters provide not only education and training, but most importantly, actually putting fire back on the landscape. In the quail world, we're constantly preaching its habitat, its habitat, its habitat, and by putting that fire back on the ground, they are providing that habitat that's much needed. John not only works to improve Oklahoma by working with landowners, he also strives to educate future generations about the importance of prescribed fire as a professor of fire ecology and management and associate extension specialist at Oklahoma State University. Go Pokes. Over the last 5 years, 2015 to 2020, the OPBA has tracked, managed, and assisted with almost 600 prescribed fires in the state. 600. It's going to get even more amazing here, though. On those 600 fires, they've burned over 133,000 acres. And out of that 133, what, John, maybe 5 acres total weren't intended? That were spot fires or escapes?
Yeah, that's a good number.
5 acres, that's a pretty good, if that's business terms, that's a very good operating issue right there. These burns were conducted in 40 different counties. 79% involved eastern red cedars, a tree that has been a leader in quail habitat loss. These PBAs do things safely and correctly, with only about 14 of these fires having a spot fire and only 3% having an escape, and that's using the most strict definitions of those two. And each year they see these numbers go down and improve as far as their safety going up. The Firebird Award is designated to recognize individuals or organizations making a significant impact on the advancement of landscape scale restoration of wild northern bobwhites. It's my privilege and honor to recognize the efforts and continued success of Mr. John Weir and the Oklahoma Prescribed Burn Association. So you guys give me a round of applause.
I get to say something?
Sure.
I'm like a good preacher. Don't give me the mic. No, I appreciate the honor and the award. We thank you very much. Oklahoma Prescribed Burn Association and myself really appreciate the recognition and the honor. We also recognize and appreciate the long partnership we've had with Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, not only through assistance with personnel and everything else, but also the funding that you've provided that's helped provide equipment, training, and stuff to get this fire back on the ground, and we appreciate that. Without our partnerships with everyone that we have, this would not be possible, and also all the great people, the landowners and stuff that are part of the local PBAs throughout the state. They're the ones that make all this possible and make it good to work with. It's always fun to work with good people. Thank you all very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for what you do for Oklahoma's wildlife habitat, and congratulations.
Tel, I have a question. If a landowner wanted to get assistance from the association, what's the procedure for that? And is there a cost involved?
So it varies around the state, and John can probably give a little bit better description, but really quickly, if you go to ok-pba.org, that's the primary website where you can get the contact information for all those chapters. Beyond that, depending on the chapter, there are membership dues, same as like a standard co-op back in the day. It's funded and built a lot similar, or very similarly. Some chapters will charge to help you do a burn. Some chapters will, if you help do enough burns on neighboring properties, they'll come and help you do a burn on your property. So it varies chapter to chapter, but definitely ok-pba.org would be the starting point on how to start getting involved.
Thanks.
Did I say any of that wrong, John? Okay.
Thank you, Tel. Appreciate it. All right, item number 8. Amanda Stork.
Good morning. I'd like to introduce Carla Beatty. She is going to introduce our Leadership Development Program participants and talk to you a little bit about the program.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Let's see if I can work this contraption. So the Leadership Development Program started several years ago, before my time here at the Commission. And so we want to recognize the current Cohort 2 class of 2020. Where this program came from initially was the director at the time noticed that we were having a lot of tenured employees retire. There were also some limited opportunities for for employees to earn supervisory skills and experience. And with that came the need for a leadership training program. So that was started. The first cohort, the purpose of the program was to give the agency's best employees the tools and the perspectives that they need to be more effective in their current positions, as well as be more competitive for any promotional opportunities that might come their way. For eligibility requirements were that the employee had to be an employee in good standing, they had to have been here for at least 5 years, and have a meets or exceeds standards on their most current PMP. So the first cohort started in 2010 and finished in 2012. It was designed as a 2-year program. There were 24 graduates. Of those 24, 14 of those employees promoted within the agency over the last several years. We've had a couple of people that retired from the agency, and I believe we've only had one that resigned. Everybody else is still employed here. So cohort 2, it was a 2-year program. We had started with 24 participants. We kicked it off in May of 2018, and their final presentations were done over March and April 2020, right after we all went home for COVID shutdown. So we did their final presentations through video. So that was kind of a challenge for the group. The components of the program included in-person workshops, and yes, they had to do their own cooking and their own cleanup. So they had to do KP when we did those in-person presentations. Those ranged from 1-day workshops to up to 3-day workshops. They also had to complete online courses through AFWA MAT, which is the Management Assistance Team, and also complete elective supervisor training courses. If you've heard us say HRDS, that's what those classes are. In addition, they had to do an oral presentation on a research topic. So we were one of the first groups that embraced the Google suite of apps, and they did their oral presentations via Google Meet. And then we did a final project and presentations. Again, they embraced the new Office 365 suite of apps that we switched to. So their final presentations were done with Office 365. So the data for cohort 2 for this class, these guys worked really hard. They put in a lot of hours. They completed 7 workshops for a total of 78 hours. They did 3 online courses with Matt, and those were either 4-week or 6-week courses. So that was a total of 14 weeks. They also completed 102 supervisor trainings. Most of those were 6 hours apiece for 612 hours. Their research topic presentations was 16 hours, and their final project presentations was 24 hours. In summary, for cohort 2, we had 24 graduates, so we started with 24 and we ended with 24. Each individual person did a minimum of 26 days above and beyond their job duties over the 2 years. That's a lot of extra time to put in and a lot of hours. In addition, 18 of our candidates also served on strategic plan teams over those couple of years. And we have had to date 11 promotions within that class. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you the cohort 2 of the Leadership Development Program. If you guys would come forward to get your certificates. And I'm going to have JD present those. Our first graduate is Jason Adair, Game Warden in District 1, Ottawa County. And we're going to do a group photo at the end. So Kelly Adams, who is the Communications and Education Supervisor here in Central Office. Joe Alexander is a Warden Supervisor in District 1. Ben Bickerstaff is a Warden Supervisor in District 8. Kramer is Game Warden in District 2, Adair County. Tony Crawford is Wildlife Technician at Spavinaw WMA. Heather Del Morel is the Communications and Education Secretary here in Central Office. Colby Farquhar is a Wildlife Biologist in San Boys WMA. Shane Fields, Game Warden, District 3, Pittsburgh County. Kristen Gilman is our Lands and Minerals Coordinator here in Central Office. I'm going to make JD get his exercise today. Spencer Grace, Game Warden, District 8, Kay County. Daniel Griffith is our webmaster here in Central Office. Ben Haff is a Game Warden in District 2, Wagner County. Mark Hanna, Game Warden District 3, McCurtain County. Tyler Hauser is a Warden Supervisor, District 6. Marnie Loftus is our Law Enforcement Operations Manager here at Central Office, and she could not be with us today. Emily Long is a Game Warden in District 5, Payne County. Cody Moore is a Game Warden in District 1, Mays County. Ashley Nealis is a Fisheries Regional Supervisor in the North Central region, and she could not be here either. Blake Podhaski is our Communications and Education Specialist here in Central Office. Josh Richardson is the Wildlife Research Supervisor here in Central Office. Marvin Stanley is a Game Warden in District 2, Cherokee County. Eric Suttles is a Wildlife Regional Supervisor in the Southeast. And Chris Wisenhunt is a Fisheries Biologist in the Northeast region, and he could not be here either. And I just want to say a little personal note to all of you guys. Thank you so much for letting me be your fearless leader and the reasonably responsible adult in the group most of the time. And I really enjoyed getting to know each and every one of you. And please stay in touch. And with that, I give you the graduating class of the Leadership Development Program, Cohort 2. Congratulations. So if you guys will stick around, we're going to do a group photo after the commission meeting is over, and then we're all going to go to lunch. Do you want to do a photo now? Okay, we'll do one now.
Thank you all. Thanks for your leadership.
I think y'all are going to be in it too. Do a photo and then you can.
Lady coming back up here.
Probably in the middle, down there.
Get District 6 right in the middle if you would.
Wide angle lens for this group.
Well, I mean that.
shot. Four fingers, I figured that out.
Yeah.
Panoramic, man.
Thank you all, thank you.
And I understand that Mark Hanna would like to say a few words on behalf of the class.
I just want to say on behalf of our leadership development class that I appreciate the opportunity. We appreciate the opportunity to participate in this. Commission, the administration, our command staff, without your support, this wouldn't happen. I learned a lot about myself, but I learned a lot about my cohorts. I'll just say it, this class helped save my life because I was going through a lot of personal things, and I've made some changes, and this class helped me make myself a better person, and I found out it's okay to work on me because I heard the stories from my friends now, and I count it a privilege to call them my friends. I heard their stories, and we're a lot alike in a lot of ways, and we're a lot different in a lot of ways. But one thing we do, we have the appreciation for is our mission here in protecting and fostering the wildlife resources of this great state of Oklahoma. Something else I learned about in this class was that we have a very good advocate for strong leadership in this organization. And without Carla, this wouldn't happen the way it's supposed to, or the way this did. And not only is she now a mentor of mine and someone that I can call if I need help, but I count it a privilege as calling her my friend now. So on behalf of our class, Carla, we have a little something for you. If you want to come up and get this, and without you, this wouldn't happen. And we appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah. Man, I love days like today. Why can't they all be like this? So we have a few more celebrations. We're going to start with a tenure recognition. With us today we have Captain Cartwright, who is joined the department in September of 1986 as a game warden. He was promoted to warden supervisor in 2008 and became the District 4 chief captain in July of 2017. He's been a firearms instructor for 34 years, field training officer. While assigned to Hughes County, he led numerous special operations involving illegal sale of wildlife and wildlife parts, which resulted in numerous convictions. He's been married to Tina for 33 years, has a son, Garrett, daughter, Bailey, and a new granddaughter, Elliot. Previous to working for the department, he was a federal park ranger at Keystone and Wister Lakes. He's a professional videographer and hunting guide, and I can attest he's probably one of our governor's you know, the governor is one of his number one fans out there for his guiding skills, helping the governor to get his first bear last fall as well. So we congratulate today Captain Cartwright for 35 years of service to ODWC. Thank you, sir.
Well,
JD.
that,
Lee wants
he's my guy.
He's my guy.
Can you make copies of that for the commissioner left and right and myself before they all leave today?
Okay.
Just a copy of it.
Okay. Next up, I want to quickly announce, because the award winner isn't able to join us, so we'll actually do a more formal award presentation at a future commission meeting. But this year was the inaugural year for the department to create a Spirit of ODWC award. You know, we have Biologist of the Year, Technician of the Year, Game Warden of the Year, Fisheries Professional of the Year, but there are a number of employees within our agency that don't qualify for any of those just by virtue of not being a game warden, biologist, technician, or fisheries person. So a new award was created for everybody else to be able to qualify, called the Spirit of ODWC Award. It arose from employee surveys and feedback about the fact that a number of others don't have the opportunity to be recognized, and we agreed. So the employees are evaluated based on our PMP categories of our strategic vision and values within the agency. So customer service orientation, teamwork, problem-solving initiative, and leadership are what these award nominees are graded on. And we're pleased to announce, because we announced it to the employees last week, so everybody else should know, that the winner of the inaugural Spirit of ODWC Award was Andrea Cruz, who is our federal aid coordinator within the agency and does a bang-up job for everybody. So at a future meeting, when we have that trophy ready to go and Andrea's present, she doesn't like to be present and be recognized that often, so we'll drag her in here at a future meeting to be able to recognize Andrea. But if you get a chance to see her, be sure to give her a big congratulations on very worthy recognition with that award. So thank you, Andrea. Next couple of awards, and then I'll get out of the way and be quiet. But we had a couple of employees that were recently recognized at national and regional organizations, and so we'll start with our national, actually international organization. We've got Canadian membership as well in the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. Every year they give out an award called the Mark J. Reef Memorial Award, which recognizes an employee or a wildlife professional of 35 years of age or less, so I don't qualify for it anymore, that has done outstanding work, and so we're actually pleased that we have an employee in our midst that took home this very prestigious international award, the Mark J. Reef Award. And just kind of looking at the nomination package, she has the rare combination of qualities that we're all seeking from up-and-coming leaders within organizations. She is bold and decisive, willing to speak truth up her chain of command, even when her perspective is different from others in the room. She's willing to go the extra mile and is dependable. When she says she will handle something, everybody at our agency knows it's going to get done at a very high level of professionalism. She's creative and often thinks through problems in a unique way, coming up with elegant solutions that others might make more complicated. And so, again, for this nomination, the criteria, the hallmark of the Mark Reef career was to take a good idea and pursue it with dedication and persistence, not cowed by his relative youth when working in high places. This award is in honor and recognizes young professionals who willingly accept more difficult challenges and inspire others to do the same. And so we're pleased to announce that the winner of this year's Mark J. Reef Award at AFWA is Kelly Adams.
Congratulations, Kelly. Well deserved.
I really just want to echo what Mark said earlier, that, you know, I'm not standing here because of anything I did on my own. I was supported by people who work here, my supervisors, my coworkers. They advocated for me for the last 10 years, and I really appreciate it, and I appreciate their support. Lance, I started as an intern in 2010. I was Lance's intern, and that was the best decision I have ever made. So, thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Man, usually people say I had to endure Lance, and I'm much stronger for it. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? Just playing. Speaking of Lance, another award that I was happy to receive on his behalf, because he had his priorities straight and he was on an anniversary trip with his wife during the CFWA Awards recently in Roanoke, Virginia. But Lance Meek received a special recognition award at CFWA this year for all of the things that he has done to advance the cause of hunter education. Of course, he runs the hunter education program for the agency, has done so many great things, and you saw some of the fruits of his early labor as our first archery in the schools coordinator here at the agency as well. And so helped plant those seeds and foster the growth of that program into one of the nation's best archery in the schools program, but also has been on the cutting edge when it comes to hunter education in terms of one of the first states to go all online, one of the first states to offer a free online hunter ed option through the National Rifle Association, and working hard to figure out how to get federal aid match credit for that National Rifle Association online course as well, when so many other folks hadn't really figured that out and quickly fell in line behind Lance in advancing all those things. So very worthy recognition at CFWA this year. The special recognition award presented to Lance Meek.
Very good. Congratulations, Lance.
Yes. He's got words. They knew I was going to talk. Hey, today is my 25th wedding anniversary, by the way. So.
Whoa, yay.
Hey, I just want to say, you know, I got here at a really good time when the agency was starting to take a different look at our hunters and our constituents, as kind of looking at more of a customer-based type of thing, and that's really everything we've done moving along. And just like Kelly and Mark said, none of this happens without a supportive agency, and that includes game wardens out in the field doing the work, and leadership willing to not only push to make changes, but also to be willing to entertain sometimes a bad idea, but sometimes good ideas of, hey, how we can change things. So really appreciate it. It's all been a pleasure.
Thank you. Well deserved. In the absence of Commissioner and Mrs. Bill Brewster today, we welcome Robin Siegfried with the Shikar Safari Club to make this distinguished award of...
I think Nathan's going to kick it off.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Nathan. So sorry.
I'll just give a quick rundown on the, how the Game Warden of the Year is selected every year. Each of the 8 districts sends in a nomination, supervisor or captain sends in a nomination for their best employee for the year. And then it is voted on by the previous winners of the Game Warden of the Year, plus 1 retiree. So y'all might remember Colonel Bill Hell that was here. He was our retiree this year that was on the on the selection committee. So it's special to me because this award is chosen by other game wardens, saying this is a game warden that's a good game warden, and we recognize this game warden as being a good game warden. So this year the winner is Kenny Lawson. He's the game warden in McCurtain County. He's been there for 33 years. Spent his whole career in southeast Oklahoma. You might recognize Kenny from being up here last year from receiving the NWTF Officer of the Year Award nationally also. So Kenny's been an outstanding employee. He's been there in southeast Oklahoma, you know, where deer season starts on July 4th down there. So he works deer season, night hunters, ATV. He's got 3 different management areas in that area. He's got the trout stream in that area. There is always something to do in McCurtain County. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Siegfried, and you can present the award.
On behalf of Shikar Safari Club, an international organization consisting of only 200 people around the world who are conservative hunters, consisting of about 25% of those people who have to be not based in America. And we do this every year to every wildlife department in America and Canada for their specified warden who has done an outstanding job in wildlife conservation, and keeping us all on our toes. And with that, our winner.
Kenny, you want to come on up?
Yeah.
Congratulations, Kenny. All right, Bill Dinkins and Jerry Shaw. We've got.
Thank you again, Commissioner Gaddis. So Oklahoma is part of the Central Flyway Council. We have strong representation on that council. A couple individuals you'll meet in just a minute, but you know they serve a very prestigious purpose, serving on the council with the part of the other there's 4 flyways across North America, and this council works with Fish and Wildlife Service to help monitor migratory bird populations, make recommendations for seasons and bag limits, and that's ultimately what we bring to you for approval. So Jerry Shaw will come up. He is our Central Flyway rep, and he has an award for Josh Richardson, who served as our tech committee person for many years before he got promoted to private land supervisor. Jerry?
Good morning. Thanks for a few moments of your time today. Jerry Shaw, you've seen me up here in front of the commission multiple times, multiple different roles, multiple different hats. Today, I'm here before you on behalf of the Central Flyway Council. As Bill said, I am our council representative, and this is a council award that they've asked for me to present. Normally, we would present this at our council meetings, which we hold across the Flyway. In this case, due to COVID, we had an online meeting, and it's pretty difficult to present an award to somebody there. So thank you for your time today. The Central Flyway Council, as Bill was mentioned, was established in 1951 to represent states, provinces, and territories within the Central Flyway. There are 10 states in the Central Flyway: Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, and North Dakota. Just as with the Shikar Safari Club, this is an international organization. We have partners in Canada as well, with Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the Northwest Territories, all being member agencies of the Central Flyway. The Central Flyway Council consists of representatives from their respective state, provincial, and territorial wildlife agencies that have management responsibility for migratory bird resources within our flyway. The primary function of the Central Flyway Council is, in conjunction with the council of the other 3 flyways and the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, is to cooperatively manage North American migratory birds, including game birds and non-game birds. To help us do that job, we have 4 technical committees that serve and advise the Flyway Council. These committees meet 1 or 2 times a year, sometimes more, including a joint meeting with council, where they share information regarding ongoing research, monitoring, and management issues about migratory birds. The technical committees often collaborate on issues and interests of shared authority, such as threatened and endangered species and non-hunted migratory game birds. I've been asked by our chairperson of our Central Flyway Council to recognize and honor a former member of the Oklahoma Flyway team, Oklahoma's Josh Richardson. Josh, if you'll come up. Josh has been a member of the Flyway Technical Committee from 2008 to 2020, attending his last Flyway meeting shortly before promoting to our private land section supervisor. Some highlights of his service during that time included a 12-year member of the Waterfowl Technical Committee, Webless Bird Committee, Western Prairie and Great Plains Canada Goose Subcommittee, the Mid-Continent Sandhill Crane Subcommittee, where he also served the term as chairman. He was the secretary of the Waterfowl Technical Committee in 2009 and again in 2019. He was the chair of the Waterfowl Technical Committee in 2010 and again in 2020. Josh sat on the Tallgrass Prairie Canada Goose Subcommittee, where he helped rewrite the tallgrass and shortgrass goose management plans, working in conjunction with not just our flyway, but across the river with the Mississippi Flyway, to create a brand new Central Flyway Arctic nesting goose management plan. Josh is also on the Central Flyway Council website subcommittee, where he helped improve the Flyway's digital presence. He helped steer the Webless Research Proposal Review team and was charged with helping to decide which research was worthy of our time and money going forward. Josh has attended 12 wing bees, where biologists from around the Flyway meet to analyze and categorize hunter-harvested bird wings that are sent in. This information is used to help us determine harvest pressure, as well as some idea about bird recruitment. This is the interesting part. As these committee meetings take place across the Flyway, Josh has traveled extensively in the service of our agencies, our hunters, and the resource. From meetings in Canada all the way down to the Gulf Coast of Texas, over his 12-year tenure serving the council, Josh has logged an estimated 225 days outside of our state, representing our interest in the council. As my role as our state's Flyway Council representative, I can personally state that Josh has been invaluable to me, helping me understand the complex web of migratory bird issues, and also being there with that institutional history to help me to make the best decisions moving forward for our state. So with this list of accomplishments in mind, it is easy to see why the council asked me to bring Josh's service to the commission today, and to have him publicly recognized for his sacrifices and services to the Flyway system. There's a customary gift from the council, and it consists of a jacket embroidered with the Flyway logo on the front. There are very few of these in existence, so it is a definite prestigious award. And it is my honor and my absolute privilege today to present this jacket on behalf of the Central Flyway Council to Josh Richardson for his 12 years working within the Flyway Council. Thank you, Commissioner.
Congratulations, Josh.
I thought it was going to be a green asterisk jacket. That's what
I know. Can't believe I did that. I was not even looking. It's just, you told me about the secret. I just circled his name. All right. Item 15, consideration to vote, approve, amend, reject, or take other action on the minutes of the September 7th meeting. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Commissioner Barwick? Commissioner Mabry? Commissioner Holder? Commissioner Zelks? Commissioner Dillingham? Commissioner Kane? Commissioner Gaddis?
Aye. And JD's director report, please.
Great, thank you. So after almost an hour of awards, that's one of the best meetings ever. I'll try to be quick on the director report side. On the federal side of things, you know, things are kind of rocking and rolling on budgets and stopgap measures and stimulus packages, and I'm sure if you've watched any news, you've seen the fiasco that's happening in DC. Along those lines, we continue to see if we can elbow our way in on an infrastructure package that will include more for fish and wildlife infrastructure. So still not a lot of traction there, but everybody's still, you know, trying to figure out if there's going to be an infrastructure package at all at this point. Our Recovering America's Wildlife Act continues to move, and you can see some of its progress there. It's gaining quite a bit of momentum with both Republican and Democrat co-authors in the House and Senate alike. There's some talk about maybe it gets tucked in to one of these infrastructure packages that moves along, or it could remain as a standalone, but we'll see. Again, at the end of the day, that's the bill that, if passed, would result in roughly $16 million a year coming to Oklahoma, new money to go towards non-game fish and wildlife related issues. So helping us do things like restoring habitat for lesser prairie chickens and keeping a number of other species off the endangered species list. And so lots of interest in seeing that passed at the end of the day. You can see the House Ag Committee held a hearing on some bills, including a Chronic Wasting Disease Research and Management Act. So there continues to be some interest in funding efforts at a national level to research and better combat chronic wasting disease that continues to spread throughout the states. And let me see if there's just a number of efforts at U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on the rulemaking side to roll back some of the rules that were passed during the Trump administration when it comes to Migratory Bird Treaty Act, as well as at EPA, the Waters of the U.S. bill. There continues to be just back and forth from Obama administration to Trump administration and now the Biden administration on those fronts. So we'll continue to tune in and see what happens there. I know I'm going to turn it over to Foundation Director Rick Grumman here in a minute at the end of my report to give us an update on the amazing inaugural Wildlife Foundation gala that was held Friday night, and I know a number of you were there to witness it firsthand. I'll just point out calendar-wise that coming up in a couple of weeks, November 15th, the week of November 15th will be the North American Falconers Association Annual Conference at Quartz Mountain. Again, that's the North American Association being hosted at Quartz Mountain. So if there's any interest, let us know. You can see Wade or Becky can hook folks up out there, maybe getting to see some of those hawks and falcons in action. Also that same week will be the Grand National Quail Hunt up in Enid. Commissioner Dillingham will be part of hosting that big event. And then I'll point out that January 6th through the 10th is the Western Association, WAFWA's midwinter meeting in Tucson, Arizona, that because we host next summer, there'll be a number of us going to that to serve as hosts to prepare to host. Legislatively, not a lot going on, which is why Corey's not stepping up to the mic right now. We did have a couple of interim studies, one including our proposal for streamlining all of our licenses and getting the prices right. And I feel like that was pretty well received. Not a huge attendance at that interim study, but we'll continue to work on that and see if there's interest at the legislature in maybe moving all of our licenses out of statute so that the commission can really help us consolidate and streamline those and make it a lot less complicated for folks to figure out what license they need. There was a fence study as well, and Assistant Director Wade went over with Corey to represent us in that study and answer questions about how we do fencing across the state. I think while we were having the Hall of Fame gala on Friday, Corey was down in Durant with Oklahoma and Texas legislative sportsmen's caucuses, had a joint fishing and policy event down there. So I think they got to get out and try to catch some stripers while they were down there meeting as well. And you may have read in the news or seen in the news, the governor's called the redistricting special session, so that'll be getting underway November 15th, that same week. Going to be a busy week. You'll see a number of other things happening throughout the agency, lots of stuff going on, whether it's human dimensions, survey work, administration, keeping the machine chugging, IT and license sales and human resources wise. Fisheries continuing to stock and shifting into trout stocking season here soon. Lots of activities on that front. You may have seen that a new state record river carp sucker was caught at Kanawha Lake. The fish was 11 pounds. It says 28 ounces, but I think that's a typo. So, because that would make more pounds. But it was what? 2.8 ounces, okay. Yeah, 11 pounds, 2.8 ounces, that makes more sense. And if anybody knows much about river carp suckers, I mean, a 2 or 3 pounder is a giant river carp sucker. So 11 pound, 2.8 ounces, extremely huge. Lots of other things going on. You can see there fishing tournaments and more habitat buoys and fish habitat being put in across the state. You'll get an update soon on the paddlefish season later in the agenda today as well. Lots going on the C&E division as we're cranking up for a lot of the shooting sports events within the schools, fishing in the schools, lots of marketing campaigns running. Again, I'm just going to kind of fly through it in the interest of time and let you read through some of these things at your leisure. Wildlife division, been busy getting ready for the hunting seasons, kicking into full gear here. I do have an update on the eCheck data, which really is just up to middle of October, so these numbers will have changed already, but we're seeing a slight decline so far, probably because of warmer weathers more than anything, in total harvest, with 13,595 checked in so far this season, with about 1,000 more checked in at mid-October point last year. One difference, though, this year, more checked in on the youth rifle side of things, with 4,675 checked in by mid-October. Dove season was down. Similar to dove season, early teal season was kind of limited success. Again, lots of warmer weather, droughts in the upper prairie, pothole regions and so forth, we knew were going to affect waterfowl numbers this year. So we'll continue to see what happens there. What else? We're going to get an update from Tell in a moment on the quail and pheasant outlook based on the roadside counts being completed. So we'll let him cover that. You'll see lots of work going on, including 9.5 miles of roads completely reworked and opened up at Atoka. WMA and 9 more miles at Atoka public hunting area, and so some examples of what's happening there. Bear archery season, we had a total of 65 bear harvested this year. That was 42 male, 23 female, all in LaFleur, Latimer, Push, Mataha, and McCurtain counties. 4 research bears were harvested, 2 with pit tags, and with that cooler weather, dropping acorns towards the end of archery season, we expect there probably weren't a lot more coming in as of that point. I believe we had 2 harvested muzzleloader, 4 harvested muzzleloader. Okay. And in law enforcement, we've unfortunately had to work a couple of hunting accidents this year, including 1 fatality down in southeast Oklahoma. South of Ada, another one which was not a fatality, thankfully. We want to recognize Game Warden Riley Willman for responding to a disturbance call and helping local sheriffs. They found an individual that had cut both their wrists, and so Riley quickly put tourniquets on and saved their life due to his quick action. So thank you to him. And I think I will leave it at that and see if there are any questions on all things happening legislatively, federally, or within the agency.
Any questions?
Busy time of year.
Yeah.
Game warden's getting ready to get no sleep here soon.
Well, we appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Rick.
Rick.
I almost forgot to do as I said and turn it over to Rick for an update on
Thank you.
the foundation. Thank you.
Chair Gaddis, Commissioners, thank you, and thank you for your support and your participation in the Hall of Fame event. I think you set a great standard and an example for others to follow. Very much appreciated. I hope everybody had a great evening. We have not completed all the counting, but I'm pleased to say that we grossed in excess of $400,000 Friday night.
Oh, yeah.
So a very exciting evening. We'll be finalizing the numbers for Fort Sill. They'll be receiving over $30,000 to support hunter programs down there, so very exciting times. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I'd like any positive, negative, or in-between comments, because that's the way we get better. We had a first chance to make a first impression, and I think we made a good entrance and look forward to making it better, and that people will be fighting to get sponsorships going forward. I know of at least 4 during the event that came up to me and said, I'm buying a table next year, just write me down. This was fantastic. So thank you to you guys, JD, Rhonda, the rest of the team here, Nels, Wade, Barry, so many, I can't list them all, but great support from the department, volunteering their time and resources to help as well, and I think it's a great start. With that, pleased to say that the foundation has purchased 118 personal flotation devices for game wardens that are en route, that we'll be able to start distributing the personal flotation devices shortly. They're the ones that inflate with air, so they're not bulky and don't encumber the game warden. So look forward to getting those out to the game warden shortly. And in addition, we've also purchased 6 pneumatic dart guns for nuisance and management bears that are in process as well. So a lot of exciting things going on, and look forward to a lot more. So I'm open to any questions.
It was a great event. I can speak firsthand. It was just top notch, and I do see it getting better. Next year, we're definitely going to need a bigger venue, a bigger room anyway. It was awesome. Great job.
Thank you very much.
Good job, Rick, on putting together your first.
All right, Amanda, for the financials.
Good morning, Chair Gaddis, Commissioners. Today I have for you the September 30th, 2021 financial statements. If you look at the first report in your packet, the combined balance sheet for all fund types and account groups for September 30th, 2021, the liabilities and fund balance is $493,191,373, and of that, the liabilities is $21,113,378. The next report in your packet is for the trust funds for a combined balance sheet for September 30th, 2021. Our expendable trust fund balance is $41,734,692. Our non-expendable trust fund balance is $97,151,718. Our pension trust fund is $139,912,841, and our DC trust is $5,940,885, for a total of $284,740,136, compared to last year of $247,947,251. The combined statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for September 30th. Our total revenues for the month is $11,094,337. Our total expenditures is $14,897,319, for a deficit of $3,802,982. And our total fund balance for the month is $61,209,073. That's a 50.47% increase over last year. And finally, our combined statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for trust funds. For the month, operating revenues is $1,126,770. Our operating expenses is $2,196,760, for a deficit of $1,069,990. Our total fund balance is $243,005,444. And our contributions for the month is a total of $10,100. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Amanda? We have a motion.
To approve this as presented.
Motion, second?
Second.
Commissioner Barwick?
Aye.
Commissioner Mabry?
Aye.
Commissioner Holder?
Aye.
Commissioner Zelps?
Aye.
Commissioner Dillingham? Commissioner Kane?
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Aye. All right, we have item number 18 is, I think we need a motion to vote, approve, amend, reject, or take other action on the budget revision.
Yep, and if you don't mind, I'll give you a quick update for license sales for the month, just because I never know where to stick them. So our number of licenses sold was down for the month 5% from October 2020, and it's down 7% year to date. Our lifetime licenses are up 5% for October, down 4% year to date. And 2021 sales aren't as high as 2020, but recreational license sales are still 19% higher than 2019.
Yeah, so we expected to see a little retraction, but it's still stronger than 2019 for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So back to the agenda item, our budget revision request, we normally bring that to you in December as our mid-year budget revision, but as we aren't having our December meeting this year, we're needing you to look at it in November. So, we've had several increases in construction costs, since our initial budget was approved in the spring. So our total budget revision request is $3,423,347.99. I think that's gonna round up to $348. And we have a couple of things, waterproofing in the back stairwell that was not, anticipated going into it. We had some cybersecurity insurance that came about that we weren't aware we weren't going to be covered by the state, insurance, and several construction projects that are seeing cost overruns. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. So the construction costs that are going up are both inflation and construction cost increases.
Yeah, materials and labor.
Materials,
going
yeah.
up. Yeah.
So when they are bid, they are coming back higher than what we budgeted and anticipated on some of the projects.
And the cybersecurity insurance, my understanding is at some point we would be eligible to fall under the state.
Yeah, so there's 7 key things that we need to have in order to be covered by the state cybersecurity insurance. We had 2.5 weeks to try to get all of that done, and we didn't have time. They notified us, and we had 2.5 weeks to decide. So they did issue an RFP on our behalf, and a company called Cowbell bid on our package. So I don't know where they come up with these names, but so we will be covered for the year while we get those 7 items covered. So multi-factor authentication, there's a lot of security things that our servers we have to add on to those. So there's 7 points that we have to get accomplished, and we have 3, so.
Amanda, where do you propose to transfer the funds from?
So of that total, 1.844 will be federal funds. So much of these are cost shared 75-25, and then the state portion of that is 942,000. And then we also have NERDA funds and matching funds that are going to cover 443,000. So of that 3.4 million, 1.8 is federal, about $1 million is state, and $500,000 is NERDA and match.
And that will come out of the expendable trust if we don't have license revenue coming in to cover that additional 900,000.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chairwoman Gaddis, the Finance Committee met last week, and I make the recommendation and make the motion to approve this budget changes.
Okay, we have the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Barwick? Commissioner Mabry?
Aye.
Commissioner Holder? Commissioner Zelps? Commissioner Dillingham? Commissioner Kane? Commissioner Gaddis?
Aye. All right, Amanda, we would like to hear from you on the investment policy statement.
Yep. So we have for you today revisions for the pension plan statement and the lifetime license fund statement. I'd like to recognize Evan Walter from BOK. I don't know if he got recognized before, but he is in attendance today, worked with us on these revisions. So the investment, or I guess it's called the Retirement and Finance Committee, is charged with reviewing this every year and making changes as necessary. Some of these changes are just update in nomenclature and language that needed to be updated. A couple of the big items, for the pension plan, we updated the table of long-term target rates and allowable ranges by asset class. So now it follows more in line with how those are managed. And then we also updated steward names in several places it used to be called something different, and so now we've updated it to Retirement Finance Committee. And then we, on the lifetime license fund, similar changes to the pension plan. We updated the withdrawal requirements language to align with the new spending policy language that wasn't present prior to this. And then we updated the investment steward name in several places, updated the definition of fair market cycle from 3 to 5 years to 5 to 10 years, so we can look at it in a little bit broader broader range. Happy to answer any questions that you all might have. We added language on the spending policy to match the Constitution and the statutory requirements of the fund, and then kind of described how we budget and treat those expendable portion of the trust fund every year, presenting that to the commission as budget match for federal funds and for operations. So it's not a required spend every year, it's a spend if necessary. So just outlining that, and then also ensuring that we do not spend below, we don't budget to spend below $5 million. So I wouldn't bring a budget to you that would take that fund balance below $5 million annually.
Chairwoman Gaddis, as I said before, the Retirement and Finance Committee met last week, and I make the recommendation and the motion to approve these changes to our plan.
Do we have a second?
Second, Mabry.
Yeah, Mabry.
Commissioner Barwick? Aye. Commissioner Mabry?
Aye.
Commissioner Holder?
Aye.
Commissioner Zelps?
Aye.
Commissioner Dillingham?
Aye.
Commissioner Kane?
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Aye. Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate that. All right, Bill Dinkins and Tell.
Gonna bring us some good news.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Don't duck.
We're hoping. So, obviously, deer season, elk season, bear season all kicked off October 1st, but there's another big season traditionally important to Oklahomans, and that's quail season coming up on the 13th, and then pheasant's going to open on December 1st. So, with that, I'll bring Tel Judkins, our upland game biologist, back up, and hopefully he's got good news.
Say that like you haven't already heard the news. Commission directors, or director and commission, I appreciate the time to get up here a second time today and address you, and hopefully deliver some, do we need to change that?
Take your own wings, you got some.
No, this will be interesting. We got a wildlife biologist doing a paddlefish update.
Fun.
Oh, yeah.
Mix it up a little bit.
Schoolie and I want to see this. Let's get it.
I will start out while he's getting the changes made. There we go.
No, not yet.
Still. But if any of the papers or anything that I'm discussing in this presentation you would like a copy of, please let me know, and I'll be happy to get those with you. We're going to start out with a good slide first.
Hey, we've seen your whole presentation. You can sit down.
Awesome. Yes, and so in your packet you have you've got a copy of the season forecast or season outlook for both quail and pheasant. I wanted to get started today talking about things that are going on the ground. And so what have we done since the last time I was up here and had the opportunity to speak with you? And the first thing on there is our bobwhite quail health survey that we did with the University of Georgia's Southeastern Cooperative Wildlife Disease Study, or SQUIDIS. They've released their final report on this project and are working on a few peer-reviewed papers that we're hoping to see start going out soon on those. Just briefly to run over this project, it was again in conjunction with UGA's SQUIDIS. It went from 2018 to 2020. In this study, we were able to trap and send off a total of 206 northern bobwhites from the 9 WMAs that are listed there. I do want to give a shout out to the crews that are there on those WMAs. They did an outstanding job helping, really do the hard work of this project and making sure that sites were baited and prepped and traps were out and ready for us to come through and try to get some birds in hand. So they did an amazing job with that. Overall, you can see from this list, there's a huge amount of things that we looked for in the birds that were studied with this. And the ultimate goal of this was to figure out if there is a health concern. Not necessarily go in and go, well, this bird's sick looking, so we need to test it. We looked at all of the bird sample to figure out everything from a general physical to an eye exam to looking at intestines to looking at specific organs for all these different birds. It was a very in-depth study, and I want to give kudos to the UGA team for helping put together a very thorough assessment. Overall, these 4 quotes really summarize the results of this study. And that overall, we found the bobwhites collected on these 9 WMAs were in good nutritional condition. Male and female bobwhites had a similar weights and ample muscle mass with visible subcutaneous and visceral fat stores. These findings suggest that the bobwhite had access to sufficient food. So there would be sufficient food on these WMAs where we were able to trap the birds. These findings suggest that the bobwhite, further, no significant gross or microscopic lesions were observed, further supporting the notion that bobwhite in western Oklahoma are in general good health with access to adequate resources. And that would be, again, on these WMAs where we've made the habitat improvement and the birds are doing pretty well, health-wise. In our study, it does not appear that O. petroi, which is the eye worms that we've all talked about for the last few years, it does not appear that those are having any significant effect on bobwhite in western Oklahoma, which was great news. We were excited to hear from the study. In conclusion, bobwhite sampled in the study were infected with a low diversity of parasites and pathogens, which is also really good news, that the overall parasite load and pathogen load was low enough that there were very few species found, and what species were present, there wasn't very many of them, so there wasn't a big impact on the birds. And lastly, while bobwhite in western Oklahoma are seemingly able to tolerate the current levels of parasitism and pathogens, the additional pressures of climate and habitat change could alter disease risk. And that's a good caveat to throw in any of these studies that currently we're seeing not a big issue or impact, but given changes in habitat and weather and all these things that we've all talked about, those same levels could present a risk in the future. So like I said, with that, I do have a copy of that report. If you all would like it, I'd be happy to get it to you. And then once those peer-reviewed papers are out, we'll be able to get that out on our website for the constituents to be able to look at as well. Switching gears a little bit to our season outlook. Every year in August and October, we do our roadside surveys. We do approximately 83 20-mile routes to observe quail visible along the roadside. And then again in March and August, we do 13 additional routes run twice to log pheasant breeding calls, which would be their crow calls, and observations as well. These surveys give us an index of bird numbers, not an actual census. Several factors can impact the ability to see these birds along the route, whether that's tall grass or a dry morning, so they're not coming out into the roadways or whatever it may be. Overall, our season outlook, some regions saw minor upticks compared to the last couple of years, but are still below average across the board, and below our both 10-year and long-term averages. Hunting should be fair but patchy. I think I said something similar to that last year. It's a little bit better than last year, in that you can have an area where you might go and work several coveys of birds, and you go to the next mile section and not find any birds. So habitat's really going to be the key driver here. Within these numbers, several regions were up a little bit, several regions were down a little bit. We did see the Southwest improve from 0 last year, and that 0 is quail per route. So how many quail were observed on an average route, up to 1.25. And overall, you can see our statewide numbers up about 23% according to our October surveys. I also like to break it down from just a regional perspective to also an eco-regional perspective. Sometimes following natural lines in the landscape are a little more, or make a little better sense than following man-made lines like the just regional ones. But you can see within that, really the western half of the state is up this year, and that's where we're seeing that 23% increase. There were not many quail seen in the eastern side, at least in our October surveys. But the rolling red prairie, rolling red plain, so the orange and red, and then that purple region as well for the panhandle, the southern high plain, were all up over 2020's numbers. Just to look at those long-term graphs for a few of these regions, this is our statewide average. There you can see we're still below that 10-year average, but have been overall for the last 4 years a fairly flat trajectory, which compared to the overall even longer than 30-year trend, flat is a good thing, that we're not seeing that go down. Hopefully habitat management and things are making a positive improvement, and we'll see those numbers come up here in the next few years. Northwest Oklahoma, we do see that little bit of uptick this year in our observations, but you can see, again, we're well below the 10 and long-term averages. And then Southwest region as well. All of these tend to mirror one another pretty closely with minor differences. These graphs for all of the regions are in that packet that you all have. And that packet will be going on our website hopefully today. Switching gears now to pheasant. Pheasant are not nearly as widely popular as quail across the state, mainly because of the limited area of the state that they're in. But there are definitely pockets where it is king over quail. I would gamble. But we broke these counties into two different regions, both traditional and non-traditional, and that bases on where the epicenters were when we first started surveying the birds. That would be the traditional counties, and then we rounded that out to include more of the pheasant range in the non-traditional counties. Overview for pheasant, we were actually able to observe something interesting this spring. And so this chart represents our breeding crow call surveys. So every spring the males will start to call for females. And we actually saw a delay in that this year due to that late February storm where we had the ice and snow and horribly cold temperatures. And so folks that did their surveys towards the beginning of the survey period were observing no calls, or very, very few calls. But towards the end of that 2-week period, that same route could offer, 100 calls. So a very substantial difference. And I think, fisheries folks would agree that we saw some of that same delay in crappie spawn and bass spawn and some of those other normal things. We'll see it in this next week or two if, deer rut starts to delay a little bit or anything like that. So we'll see. And then, so with that, there was a decrease noted this year that I don't know will actually match on the field conditions, was my point behind that spiel. In fact, when we go to our August brood counts, we were actually about equal with last year's numbers. So I expect the on the field conditions to be, again, fair and patchy for our pheasant, but slightly improved over last year's numbers. For hunter participation in our population of hunters, these are numbers taken directly from our game harvest survey that we do annually. Our 2020 survey just came out a few weeks ago. Our results came out a few weeks ago. We can see that hunter numbers continue to be down compared to the last 30, 40 years. Last year on the quail side, we noted a decrease in hunter numbers, but an actual increase in total harvest. So the hunters that were in the field were harvesting more birds than they had the year prior. And then on the pheasant side, last year, for some reason, we had a decrease in number of hunters and with that, a decrease in total harvest. One thing I want to point out with any of these is this chart that is from the Oklahoma Climatological Society, and Dr. Dwayne Omers was the first one that presented this in a way that really stuck with me, and since then it's been a part of just about any presentation I've done. When we think about quail hunting, it's really easy to jump back in our past to, oh, remember the 80s, that was an awesome quail hunting. Oh, remember Grandpa always talked about the early 70s, those were amazing. When we start to line up those amazing points along that map, we'll notice that they're all in those green conditions. And one thing we'll notice, they're from about the early 80s to right around 2000, it's all green right in there. And all of those dots are pretty close to that bold black line. So that's meaning that it's pretty normal rainfall throughout that period. So all the way back to statehood and beyond and before, that's the only 15-year period where we didn't really have a major drought impacting the state. And so when we're looking at, oh, the 80s were great, the 80s were quite possibly some of the best quail hunting that this state could produce, period, just based on the rainfall and availability of habitat. And you can see as we've pushed further to the right, those dots tend to get more sporadic, up and down, up and down, up and down, rather than having a trend above that line for a few years. So hopefully we'll see, this graph extended out with new data over the coming years, but also some improvements to match our quail studies as we go through. For instance, one of the proposals that we were talking about this year is comparing some of this historical weather data to things like our game harvest survey numbers, our roadside survey numbers, to try to connect those dots and make those correlations with more than a gut feeling per se. Another point to discuss on climate-wise here in Oklahoma, it's almost like we can't talk about quail in Oklahoma without a little bit of drought. When we started the year, we were actually seeing a little bit of drought, mostly in southeastern, south central, and southwestern there. You'll see in that upper left map of the state. As we got into the summer, a lot of that drought had gone away. We still had a pocket in northwestern Oklahoma around Woodward, but that was the most of it. And then, even then, there was an even smaller percentage of moderate drought. as we got into October and the current conditions, majority of the state is in some type of drought with pockets there in Cimarron, Beaver, Harper, and Woods counties with extreme drought present in those areas. So obviously where weather has made an impact with our birds, specifically drought, conditions might not be as good as some of those other patches that we discussed. Looking forward, as Bill said, our season starts off November 13th. We do have an event that I'll be attending. Hopefully we can get a few more people to go. Quail Forever, Pheasants Forever will be hosting a 3rd annual Hunters Hangout there off of, we'll start out hunting Beaver River and then meet up for a get-together that evening to allow an opportunity for sportsmen or whomever is in attendance to meet with wildlife professionals from ODWC, PFQF, and OSU. I'm sure we'll have some folks there, so it ought to be a good time, a good excuse to get the dog out and hopefully work some ground and have a little fun. And with that, I do want to throw the reminder out to work some ground, trust your dog, and make some memories enjoying the Oklahoma outdoors, and to remember that the outdoors are always open. And there's some photos of me and our ODWC quail technician doing just that. So with that, I'll open it up. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those, and thank you for your time.
Tell, those eye worms sound like a terrible affliction. Do we know what causes those?
So the eye worm is it's a multi-stage parasite that starts out its life in droppings, and from droppings moves into a host insect like crickets and grasshoppers. They haven't figured out an exact species or if it's all crickets and grasshoppers or what that is. And then at that point, a quail ingests the cricket grasshopper and then has the eye worms. Within this study, we were actually seeing that, let me pull the numbers up here. For 2018, 2019, 2020, in order, we had 15%, 14%, and 5% even presence in our birds. So for 2020, only 5% of our birds, which was 2 out of 42 birds, had one. With that, we saw much fewer eye worms across the board than the previous study out of Texas, the Operation Idiopathic Decline. So I don't know if that's just we got lucky and found the ones that had fewer worms, or our birds are showing less presence, which would be amazing. Within that, we were also seeing that the birds that tended to have the most were actually some of the most fit. So they had some of the larger muscle masses. They had some of the bigger fat reserves. So kind of an interesting correlation there. We don't really know what it means yet. I'm anxious to get some of the peer-reviewed data out to see if there's any other correlations or connotations that are made there. One of the things to remember with eye worms is it's a really easy symptom to be able to pick out. So when we harvest one, it's really easy to look and go, oh, this bird has eye worms. But we need to remember that the eye worms aren't what killed that specific bird, us shooting it or harvesting it was. And so it's really easy to make that connotation, like you're at Walmart and somebody coughs and, oh goodness, is that what I think it is? But it's definitely not a comfortable thing to live with, that's for sure.
But it's not detrimental for their livelihood. In other words, they survive with it.
We've observed them surviving with it. The trade-off there would be, is it killing more quail than would naturally die, is the question to kind of ask. Obviously, when a covey flushes, well, your nephew saw me shoot this weekend. I'm going to go after the slowest target, the one that's the easiest to pick off. And then if that happens to be one impaired by eye worms, then so be it. That bird was the least fit according to Darwin's principles. So whenever we get to things like which one would be more susceptible to a bobcat predating on it, or an owl swooping in at night, obviously the one who's impaired is going to be an easier target. But is that a bad thing per se, ecologically? In that the one that's less fit is the one being predated upon. So there's not really enough information, I don't think, to say one way or the other, but I think there's enough to make an assumption that it's not an additive mortality.
Do the pheasants have them too?
So it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know that they've officially been documented in pheasant. It wouldn't surprise me anything that eats a cricket or grasshopper to have eye worms. So my wife works with raptors up in Perkins at the Gray Snow Eagle House, and occasionally they will get raptors in to do necropsies on for interns and that type of stuff. I'm looking to get at their Mississippi kites that they get in. their cadavers to look and see if there's eyeworms in those, which that's a raptorial insectivore. So if we've got a raptor with eyeworms, then now we're potentially looking at something that can really prove that it's not making that mortality deficit.
Interesting.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Tel?
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tel.
Thank you, Tel.
And I understand Laura McIver's tuned in online if you want to say hi to Laura and hope you get to feeling better. Apparently, it's not COVID related. She wants to make sure we all know that, so.
All right, Barry Bolton.
Good morning, Commissioners, Director Strong, and Rhonda. Agenda item 21 has become an annual presentation where Fisheries Division provides an overview on paddlefish activities during the past season. I'm going to introduce both of our fisheries employees now, and I'll have Brandon come up first. But Brandon Brown, I think you all know him, is the kind of in charge of paddlefish activities. He's the fisheries supervisor stationed at the Paddlefish Research Center on Grand Lake. And Brandon's going to start us off, just kind of give us an overview of the activities during this most recent season. Then Jason will come up a little bit after that, senior fisheries biologist at the PRC. And Jason is recognized nationwide for his work with paddlefish and native non-game fishes. You'll recognize him when he comes up. Anyway, I'd ask Brandon to come up and just kind of kick us off, and then we'll be pleased to answer questions afterwards.
I think it's been 2 years since our last update, but we didn't have a season in 2020. So not a ton of changes have happened since we last talked. So I'm just going to hit some of the high spots on operations and caviar sales. And then, like Barry said, I'm going to turn it over to Jason. He'll go into more detail, talk about some of the population data more specifically, and also just some of the many projects that he and Colby have going on.
Might remind you to use the mic if you don't mind, just for the people that are online, so.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
So in 2021, last year, we processed about 1,100 fish. Just to put that in perspective, since 2014, when the two-fish season limit went into effect, we've harvested, more or less, generally speaking, about 2,500 fish per year. That's kind of our new normal. Of course, the exception to that is last year, 2021, 2018. If you look at those numbers, they're very similar. And they're outliers. And the common denominator in both of those years is flow or lack of flow, river flow, water flow. We've talked about that before. When we talk about paddlefish, flow is what makes the world go round. And in each of these years, we have to have the right timing, magnitude, and duration, the right flow at the right time for the right amount of time to really get those fish going, get the fishermen out there to fishing good. We just didn't have it. Mainly, we didn't have the right timing each of those years. So it just didn't go our way, and it's a natural system. Sometimes that happens. Also, I'll point out really quickly, I know Jason's going to talk about this more, but we are still seeing that transition to a younger fishery. That 29-year class or 2019-year class that was so large and so abundant, they're old now. They're pretty much out the door. We're transitioning to younger fish that are just now reaching sexual maturity and entering the fishery, so to speak. And I know Jason's going to talk more about that. Real quickly, I'll talk about caviar. We produced about 3,500 pounds last year. For perspective, in a normal year, about 7,500 pounds. So it was down quite a bit. However, the good thing was that price and demand for caviar were up significantly. Prices up about 20% since 2019, up about 40% since 2017. And, we struggled really to sell caviar back in 2017. The demand is much better now. The Japanese market, which has been so good to us, it's pretty fragile. It's just gradually declined. And while the domestic market has grown the last several years, the Japanese market just continues to decline more and more and more. However, the good thing there is There used to be a big difference in price between export caviar and domestic caviar. They're the same now. So it's really not that important that it go to Japan as long as we can still sell everything we produce. So overall, I think this is the best caviar outlook we've had in several years. I'm not going to talk much long. Oh, I need to tell you about, I said we didn't have many changes, but we did have a few. The most significant was the change in our processor, our contract. Many of you knew the Wisher family. They've been with us since day one, but 2020 was the last year for that. We rebid the contract in 2021, last season. Keith Green got the processing contract for fish cleaning and roe processing. Many of you know Keith Green. If you don't, he retired from the department several years ago, had a very long career as a game warden, really well known in Northeast Oklahoma. But more importantly, he was the first Paddlefish program supervisor and coordinator. He was one of the guys that was absolutely instrumental into building this program from scratch, from nothing. His fingerprints are on literally everything we do up there. Did a fantastic job. Just can't say enough good about that. We don't know who's going to get the contract next year. It's out for bid right now, but that closes very soon. We should know, I would say, somewhere around Thanksgiving, not long at all. I'm not going to talk much longer, but I did want to talk about some of the fun stuff. Y'all may remember that Andrew Zimmer and Bizarre Foods came and gave us a visit in 2017. We've talked about that before. When they left, I thought we'd get our 15 minutes out of that and they'd move on to the next thing. But it's been 5 years now, and we talk to them at least once a month. We sent caviar Thursday, 2 containers for an event in Atlanta this coming weekend. We've had a great relationship with these guys. They're out there 5 years later, they're still out there promoting our caviar every chance they get. And I think it's worth mentioning that they're promoting our caviar to people we wouldn't otherwise have access to. We're talking about celebrity chefs, we're talking about James Beard Award winners, real leaders and well-known people in the industry. And I think the take-home message is, though, that these are people that can have any caviar in the world they want, but they're asking for ours. So I think that's the very biggest compliment that we could be given on our caviar program. I want to wrap up by just sharing one real quick story. The young lady on bottom, I just told you about some of the kind of more well-known folks we sell caviar to. This is Ari Sky on the bottom. She was our very smallest buyer. She started about 4 years ago, bought 1 container that she sold on her bagels off her red bike in LA. The next year, she bought 2 containers, then 4, and so on and so on. And now she's actually selling more than the guy who owns the restaurant in the top half of that slide, which is very high end. And she just opened a storefront. I don't know, maybe you've heard of her. She's been in the news a little bit. Stephen Colbert gave her a blurb in his monologue about a month ago. That was followed by the New York Times article, and she called about 3 weeks ago, so excited she could hardly talk. She's in Vogue magazine, and she is partnered with a nail polish company that's producing a shade of caviar, or a shade of nail polish, that's exactly the same as our green caviar. And so Ari's kind of the face of that. So I'll just wrap up by saying that you just never know what's waiting down the road. You know? Anything can happen, and it's just so neat to be a part of things like this. We're really proud of what we're doing. Lastly, I want to invite you guys up. I know most of you have been up to see us before. Come up during season. Come up, go on the boat, pick up fish, or if you want to go out with Jason and the guys when we're out netting, that starts in about a month. We'd love to have you. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Jason, let him share some of his work with you.
Brandon, does she mention Oklahoma, the department, in her marketing?
She tells our story to every single person she talks to.
Awesome, that's great. Thank you, Brandon.
Awesome. Barry, I'm going to expect to see that new shade after your next manicure.
I was going to wrap this up by telling them we'll have to get some nail polish for all the commissioners. We've come so far. I remember back when we couldn't even sell the green caviar, and now people are painting it on their nails. It's crazy. As as introduced earlier, I'm gonna give you kind of some highlights of the other paddlefish activities we do statewide. We are more than just caviar production. We're a year-round operation, and we put a lot of work into this. So just to kind of circle back to what Brandon was talking about with the ecology, the rainfall, et cetera, here's kind of a picture of what we saw this season in spring, where we had a really big flood pulse in early March, which of course followed a lot of cold winter, unseasonally cold weather in Oklahoma and the region. So what that did was it gave a really good flood pulse, which inspires fish to move, but the water temperatures were still pretty cold. And that resulted in a possible likely early spawn, but we didn't really have a lot of evidence that it was a successful spawn. There was a second flow event in late May, which generally is after most of the snagging activity, so we don't have a lot of intel on whether or not fish deposited their eggs in that event. But that early flood pulse is exactly what we like to see had it been a little bit warmer temperatures. So as you can see, the water rose substantially, stayed high for close to 10 days, and that's absolutely perfect had that happened 2 weeks later. So generally we don't get a lot of good indication of whether there was a successful recruitment event until the following year. So we're going to be looking to see if we have observations of a lot of small yearling fish coming up, but I'm sort of hesitant to say that we had a good spawn this year. We may have had a small one, but anglers generally reported poor snagging success this season. And so that plays into what Brandon was saying. We had sort of a poor water year and people were struggling to catch fish. And a lot of that is because during that flood period, the water was out of the banks. They couldn't even get to the river, and it was full of debris, if they were out there. So complaints, frustration, but we have a really good relationship with our anglers. We talk to them, they understand, it can't be gangbusters every year. And during that peak season, we had low water conditions, so the fish weren't really inspired to move around a lot. Fishing was tough. And as Brandon mentioned too, we are in a serious transition right now. The 1999 year class was gigantic. It's provided 20 years of excellent snagging in Oklahoma. But now those fish are largely aged out, very few remain, and we have a large year class spawned in 2015, which are replacing them. But as you know, 2015 was only 6 years ago. The males of that year class are just now sexually mature. The females will become sexually mature starting the early ones maybe this spring, 2022, but 2023 is where we should really start seeing the females from that second large year class. So we're kind of, in the well between some good fishing. So we got a lot to look forward to, but it's going to be a little bit frustrating for another year or two. Some basic data on the harvest. As Brandon said, we've had some up and down years. A lot of that's been on purpose, however. These vertical dotted lines indicate major regulations that we put forth with the intention of reducing harvest. So looking at PRC harvest over time, it does sort of break into two sort of time periods. And, given that 2020 was almost an asterisk in every single way, we're really kind of hesitant to make a lot of interpretations, knowing what we know about the age structure and the difficulty with fishing. So when I see this, it looks like a declining trend, but I'm not really concerned about that because I know what we got in the bank with the 2015 spawn, and we're going to see some pretty serious fishing here for the next decade.
I have a question about this.
Sure.
Why is it, I've looked at this material, why is it that there's about a 20% more males that are caught or snagged than females? Are they just wanting to get on the hook, or what? I mean, I would assume that population's fairly equal.
That's a valuable question. It's due to a lot of things. Males are more eager. They spend more time on the spawning grounds, more time in the river. They are more vulnerable. They definitely get hooked more often. Females are preferentially harvested, whereas males are often thrown back. So when you look at the length of the season, it starts out heavily biased towards males, and then assuming the flow is better, that bias shifts towards females, towards the peak season. But if you have a low water season, it's gonna stay up males. But we see throughout the history of the program, it's generally about a 60% male, ratio there.
It's interesting.
Yes, last summer. I'm gonna highlight that. That was a female. I'm gonna highlight that here in a minute. So I'll just rip through a couple trend data slides. Body length, as you can see, we're staying about constant for females, and you can't see my legend there for some reason, but we dropped for males, and that's again, those young males are entering the fishery. Total weight, similar. We're seeing a reduction in male weight. That's because they're younger fish coming in, whereas we still have some holdouts on the females in the harvest. Speaking of the females, roe weight, average raw roe, we saw a 3-year increase. It's up to about 11 pounds per female, and the GSI is a statistic we use to describe what fraction of the female's body weight is reproductive material, and so 25% is pretty excellent, and we're at 23% last year, which is great. We are going to see that decline as younger fish move into the harvest, but I would not expect it to really dip down below 15%. As we can see there, we've been consistently above that. And then just to highlight a couple of things we do outside of the harvest. Of course, we have a valuable internship program at the PRC. It's something that I feel really proud of because I've been part of it since 2011 when we started. And this year they worked over 1,500 hours at the PRC doing various projects and, you know, being our front line with the anglers and educating them, etc. And we have almost reached 100 interns since the start of the program, so we're going to hit that this spring, and I'm looking forward to that. We do have some regulation changes which recently happened. You're all familiar with this, but everyone in the audience who isn't, harvest is now permitted 7 days a week. We no longer have 2 days a week that are catch and release only. We are successfully managing harvest with an individual harvest limit of 2 fish per year per angler. So we don't need that redundant regulation at this point. This, of course, is going to impact the operational hours of the PRC. We're going to shift those days off to the middle of the week. And so we're going to be closed Tuesday and Wednesdays and open Thursday through Monday. So it's going to be better for us, better for the anglers, give them a lot of opportunity to harvest and use our services. Another regulation change, we got rid of the prohibition on snagging in the Arkansas River in Tulsa. If you're not aware, there's a dam reconstruction going on in Tulsa in the Arkansas River. And historically, we've had a lot of paddlefish aggregating at that dam and ending up in pretty poor condition. So this is going to allow our anglers to utilize that resource and also harvest some of those and potentially improve the overall condition of the fish at that site. Of course, we don't just focus on the Grand River stock. As Commissioner Barwick mentioned, we had another world record paddlefish caught this summer in Keystone Lake. That's 3 times now. Of course, as managers, we're looking at this as providing additional pressure through the use of live scope technology, which you guys are probably worried about crappie as well. However, in Keystone Lake, it's pretty interesting that the guide services utilizing this technology are heavily focused on catch and release. So they're exemplifying a really good conservation ethic. And right now, we are not necessarily concerned about this, but as this continues to grow and take hold, we'll be monitoring that. Yes, sir.
I have a question at Keystone Lake. Do you have a way of processing those fish as well, like you do up on the northeast around Miami?
Yes and no. We have had some brought to us at the PRC, and we would gladly provide that service as long as the fish are alive due to our health code regulations. It's not very convenient most often, but yes, we have done that in the past. We don't necessarily have an intent to move our operations to Keystone, but it could be something that we'd be happy to discuss further with you.
Right.
Also along the idea of Keystone and expansion there, one of the concerns, of course, is that it's created a summertime fishery. This live scope is great for people to get out on the boat when the weather's nice, and they're out there catching paddlefish out of season. I mean, we wouldn't normally consider that. And so as you can see in the figure there, looking at the trend data, warm month harvest has increased quite a bit in 2020. I don't have the data yet compiled for 2021, but people are fishing for paddlefish all year round now, and it's you know, we're having to look at that. And so this is also occurring at Fort Gibson Dam, which is the only tailwater where snagging is legal, and we've been monitoring the catch and release fishing there at that site as well. Then of course with the Arkansas River, as soon as that dam is completed in Tulsa, there may be more activity as well. Okay, and then just a quick highlights on some of the research we're doing. We have multiple papers in review or in press right now, one of which was pretty cool, where we looked at jawbones. It's how we age fish. And when a fish is spawned in a river, they uptake some of the chemical signatures of that river. And we found that in the Grand Stock, where they have a choice to migrate up the Neosho or the Spring River, we found that the Neosho River is actually producing 87% of the paddlefish in the Grand Stock compared to the Spring River. So that really proved to us that the Neosho River is vitally important to paddlefish in the Grand River system, and those fish are actually observed throughout the Arkansas, the Grand, all the way into the state of Arkansas. So it's a pretty neat observation. We have another paper in press talking about the fecundity of paddlefish, showing that, demonstrating something I discussed with you earlier about the native non-game fish, how those large adult female fish are more important in the conservation of the stock. And so we're demonstrating this with paddlefish, such that a female that's twice as heavy as a younger female produces more than twice the amount of eggs. So there's a disproportionate impact on recruitment for large old females. And then of course we're writing up a paper about the world record paddlefish. That's been a pretty crazy phenomenon for all of us. And then just lastly, kind of a cool thing, you may have not heard of this before, but there's a little parasite in paddlefish and sturgeon called a polypodium. And it's actually a cnidarian endoparasite. And what that means is it's basically a freshwater jellyfish that infects cells, infects eggs of paddlefish and sturgeon. And we've seen this at the PRC throughout the history of the program. It's not a problem. It doesn't hurt humans or anything, and it's not very abundant in paddlefish. However, we wrote a paper on that last year, and a couple of years ago we kept some specimens from males as well, just to investigate this parasite. Well, my colleagues at the Natural History Museum in London actually ran the genetics on those testes from the male paddlefish and found this parasite in the males as well. So this is sort of a groundbreaking discovery that sort of casts aside this entire life history drawing that we had in our paper. And so we're going to be looking at that. It's just one of those little aside things that is kind of cool because you have all of these specimens at your disposal to examine. So stay tuned for more on the polypodium. And then we're potentially going to update our paddlefish management plan in 2023, 10-year update on that. So maybe this is the last slide. I thought this is another cool thing though. As those giant paddlefish coming from Keystone Lake, those world record class fish, I mean, they're huge. There's tons of them out there. That's partly due to the fact that Keystone Lake has extremely high genetic diversity. When we contrast that with Grand Lake, which is our most important paddlefish fishery in Oklahoma, has very low genetic diversity. So part of our genetic research, one of the recommendations was to potentially augment the Grand Lake stock through translocation of either stocked fish or adults. And so we're in the process of that in a collaborative relationship with the Fish and Wildlife Service and Kansas Parks and Wildlife. And this last spring, we translocated adult males from Keystone Lake to Grand Lake in the hopes that they would start spawning with our Grand Lake females in the same way we do, you know, Florida largemouth bass. We stock those in lakes all over the place. Well, this is to enhance the genetic diversity of the Grand Lake stock and hopefully make bigger fish. That would be a great byproduct, but for the conservation of the stock, it makes sense to enhance their genetics. So at the same time, we moved our hatchery broodstock source from Grand Lake to Keystone Lake, so we're going to continue to stock these higher valued genetic fish into the Kansas reservoirs, which is also part of our system here. With that, appreciate it, and take any questions.
How long will it take to see the effect?
A while. I'm working on a request for proposals to get sort of a collaborative genetic relationship going to monitor that process. But we did put fish in this spring, so if they spawned, then the process has already begun. And the brood stock that we used this spring were from Keystone as well, so those were stocked in Kansas reservoirs, which would trickle down to Oklahoma.
Jason, what's the limit on, paddlefish, and then is there any length limit on them as well as number?
There's a daily limit of 1 and an annual limit of 2, and we don't use minimum length limits in Oklahoma. We utilize a different strategy where we try to limit the maximum number of fish a person can harvest rather than the size, because a minimum length limit doesn't do anything to protect those larger, more valuable fish that we are talking about preserving.
Jason, what's the current level of challenges with illegal activity of harvesting for caviar?
That'd be a better question for our law enforcement professionals in the room. I'm fortunate that I stay fairly insulated from those stresses. I got enough to go around, but I would encourage you to talk with them about that.
Hey there.
Jason, do you keep in contact with the states? I know that Spirit has Dakota, Montana, that their fisheries there. Do you guys
Paddlefish world is pretty small. We're fairly collaborative. I'm a governing board member on the North American Sturgeon and Paddlefish Society. We just had a meeting last week where I talked with paddlefish managers from Alabama, Kansas, Oklahoma, and I'm on a weekly communication with Skarnecchia, who basically runs the Montana and North Dakota programs. They face the same frustrations as we do. It's more about the ecology. They've got conservative regulations in place, and so they had a good year this last year. But they only harvest 1,000 fish total. It's their harvest cap. So we have a lot more fish to go around.
Jason, is there a reason that Neosho is more productive than Spring River? Have y'all looked at that?
Yes.
What's going on with that?
The project I highlighted was actually a second, phase 2 of a longer term project. We determined that the spawning habitat in the Neosho River has a better relationship with hydrology than in the Spring River. And by that I mean there's more of that habitat present, and it's available in more usable ways for the fish. So the flow has to be right for them to migrate upstream to lay their eggs on specific habitat, which is inundated, and that habitat needs to stay inundated long enough for the fish to hatch and then drift downstream. So it's sort of a complex scenario, but part 1 told us the Neosho is great, and we validated that by actually looking at evidence of recruitment in fish harvested over the years. So it was pretty cool.
Thank you.
Very good.
So was that phase 1 the Dr. Long side scan study that was looking at the habitat?
No.
No, that was something different.
Well, they followed on to what we did and looked at the restoration reservoirs in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Very interesting. Thank you, Jason. I'm hoping that maybe we can
In closing, I'd
back
just,
up there this spring, especially for some that haven't seen it.
in closing, I'd just like to add, I think that you all can see that Jason and Brandon are great ambassadors for ODWC, and we sure appreciate their work.
Yes, we
Thanks,
do.
guys.
Thank you. All right. Yes. All right, item number 22, do we have a motion to move to executive session?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Barwick?
Aye.
Commissioner Mabry? Commissioner Holder?
Aye.
Commissioner Zelps?
Aye.
Commissioner Dillingham?
Aye.
Commissioner Kane? Commissioner Gaddis?
Aye. We'll recess to, yeah.
I have a passion for photography that's very similar to my passion for hunting, and I see both of these hobbies as being something that I struggle with which one I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So I live in southwest Oklahoma, right in the backyard of the Wichita Mountains. The refuge is so close and is full of all sorts of just wonderful animals, vegetation, you name it. There's a lot of cool things to see out there. Just right at 10 years ago now, my wife and I bought a camera just for general use and reasons, and I started carrying that camera around with me in the field. Very quickly, that turned into from just a little small interest to a hobby to something that I'm very passionate about now. There's ties between photography and hunting that are so similar to each other, and so there's that hunt for the picture, there's patterning the animals that you're looking for, being used to how they would act or their temperaments, or how they may act whenever you're around them. And so photography, while you're chasing that shot, if you will, it's just the same as hunting in so many different aspects. It's just you don't necessarily take home meat for the freezer, you take home pictures and memories that you've made while you're in the field. Did that deer lay down right here? No, he didn't. The Wichita Mountains, they manage their deer herd very well. It's been managed for years and years, and as a result of that management, you see an older age class of bucks that are coming through. So you see your 5.5, 6.5, your 7-year-old deer that are just growing astronomical antlers, and so you see those huge bucks that all of us, you know, as a hunter, even myself, I just dream to see them. You know, those deer are showstoppers for me. You know, so if I have the opportunity to get pictures of a trophy deer, it's a trophy to me just in the picture itself. So we pulled up and there were 3 bucks that were cruising across the road here, and so we got a few good pictures of one of the bucks. The bigger of the 3 bucks was on a mission. He was looking for a girlfriend, and so he's made his way off, but the other 2 are still kind of here close. Every day that I go out to take pictures right now during the rut is me not also saying no to going hunting, and it is a a deep inside personal struggle, because right now, just like any deer hunter, when the rut is going on, the attention of those big bucks has been swayed, and their attention is on the ladies that are around them. And so the opportunity to get pictures of these deer is so much better. It's almost like a Sunday drive through the woods, and you're always got an eye out for a deer or critters or just whatever may pop out. And then when you see them, you kind of slow up and you try to adjust yourself to where you can take a picture, whether that is in the vehicle or getting out and working towards. But really, it's just a matter of recognizing, seeing the deer, getting yourself safely stopped, and then getting that camera up into the window to be able to take a picture. And you know, that's something that you'd like to see happen in 3 to 5 seconds. It doesn't always happen that way, but ideally that's the way it happens. So it's not all just about big game and big flashy animals. So there's all sorts of things out there that are beautiful in their own way. And some of the things are smaller, you know, like butterflies, for example. You know, this butterfly is only about 1.5 inches tall, but when taken a picture of and able to see it, man, there's all sorts of beauty on this. Our native wildflowers, the same thing. There's all sorts of wonderful things out there that you can take pictures of, things that make great pictures, and it's all very literally out there in our own backyards. Even some of our upland game birds. I love if the opportunity presents itself when I'm in the field. I'm never out there just looking for a picture of one certain thing. Even a drab female red-winged blackbird can make for a wonderful picture. For me, I'm constantly chasing the right composition, the right lighting. You know, I don't just hit the shutter anymore just to have the picture. Anymore, if I'm hitting the shutter, it's a picture that I think is going to be suitable for keeping, framing or showing. And so for me, it's just it's taking an ordinary subject, which could be a white-tailed deer, a small white-tailed deer, and presenting it in an extraordinary way. And so something that somebody may look at any other day and say, you know, that's just normal. But in the pictures that I'm taking, I try to present them in a way that somebody'd say, wow, you know, that looks amazing, for whatever reason that it may be. There he is. Right straight across. Dang it. Yeah. Yeah. Bad shot. I mean, not bad shot, but well, he's a good one. Oh, I've got pictures of that deer. Right. Meh. Eh. Look at me. Meh. 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 Really, when it came down to it, when I picked up that camera and started to enjoy it, I just had this desire to learn. I enjoyed doing it, and I liked it, and I wanted to be better at it. And so it was a constant, for me, it was a constant learning game of I would go out and take pictures, and then I would go home and I would say, well, this looks good about this picture, or this doesn't look good, or this is pleasing about this picture. Read several books, did a lot of research online. But in the end, for me, hands-on experience proved to be extremely beneficial. Yeah, good pictures. Yep, there's another one, another nanny. Dang it, that should have been the big buck. That would have been the perfect picture. I mean, not that two does together isn't. I enjoy taking pictures of big game. I also enjoy chasing birds, shorebirds and wading birds. I love being able to take a picture and share it with somebody, whether it's on social media or it's family or it's friends, and show them what exactly lies in our own backyards. And more often than not, people see these pictures and they're going, you know, goodness, where was this? Where were you at? What were you doing? You know, where was it taken? And here locally, the Lawton area, for a lot of these people, they're 10 minutes from where they can see this, or they're 15 minutes from where they can see this. And so just providing people the knowledge and the information that it's in your own backyard, for me, that proves is a really big thing for me. So just because I'm out there with a big lens and I've got a camera to match it, it doesn't mean you can't go out there and experience it. It doesn't mean you can't take your phone, any camera that you have, or even your binoculars, or even just going out there to see it. I'd say to anybody who's thinking about getting out there and doing it, get out there and go do it. It's enjoyable. Every experience is new. Don't jump off in there, buddy. Got you. Old half rack. Meh. Meh. That's an awesome picture. Oh, I'm gonna pull forward. Too much show going on there. He's gonna pee. That's awesome. He's making a scrape. Every picture tells a story, and while there may be thousands of pictures that I've taken over the years, every single one of them I can look at and there's something behind the lens that was going on that I can recall. You know, the hunting aspect I hope I can pass on to my children. The photography aspect, you know, if they show interest, then I'll be all there. I love spending time with others that have the interest, people that ask the questions, and so for me, yes, while I may be chasing the same white-tailed deer in 20 years, it's going to be a new picture.
still 12.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you guys.
Asked for from Russ.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
So I had everybody turn theirs in.
I left something in there. I got a couple extra coins from him because I'm gonna send one to Governor Stitt. No. And I left them in the restroom.
In the restroom?
I did, on the toilet paper dispenser. There were two of them. I locked it.
Where's Amanda?
I don't know if I should wait till she gets back.
Can you hear?
She'll shut the door behind her.
Can you hear? Okay.
Yeah, we're not live, are we?
Getting ready to be.
She may not have found it. Somebody might pick them up after.
Nope.
Sure, we need some more.
I know. Yeah, he said he had a bunch. Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to resume our open?
Resume, open meeting.
Second.
Okay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Aye.
Commissioner Mabry?
Aye.
Commissioner Holder?
Aye.
Commissioner Zelps?
Aye.
Commissioner Dillingham?
Aye.
Commissioner Kane?
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Aye. And do we have a motion from
Yes,
executive session?
Madam Chairman, I would move to give our director full settlement authority in the
Second.
Commissioner Barwick?
Aye.
Commissioner Mabry?
Aye.
Commissioner Holder?
Aye.
Commissioner Zelps?
Aye.
Commissioner Dillingham?
Aye.
Commissioner Kane?
Aye.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Aye. All right. Item 23, we want to vote, amend, reject, or take other actions on the meeting dates set for 2022. And they are as follows: January 3rd, February 7th, March 7th, April 4th, May 2nd, June 6th, July 5th, which is a Tuesday, August 1st, September 6th, Tuesday, October 3rd, November 7th, and December 5th.
I might mention that I think Commissioner Dillingham has some questions about the January 3rd date potentially. Is that correct?
That's correct. As we've discussed, former Commissioner Grondike and myself would love to host an event up in Enid if it fits with everyone's schedule and desire for holding the meeting either here in the city or up in Enid on the 3rd, followed by a dinner that evening and a European pheasant hunt that next morning if you also desire.
So everybody check your availability, January 3rd and 4th.
Okay, we do have a foundation meeting that afternoon, but maybe that
Maybe we can
rearrange.
shuffle it around.
Okay.
And Nels, we depart on the 5th? Okay.
Okay.
So the commission meeting would remain on the 3rd essentially, which is the first Monday as listed here. And then I think he wanted to just sort of check availability on the 4th as well. The actual, the actual commission meeting would stay on the 3rd.
Okay.
So it wouldn't affect anything on that agenda item, really.
Chairman gets to pick if it's in Enid or here.
Oh. Well, we've had it here in the past with no problems, but I'm open. I mean, if we have any suggested other.
My thoughts are the department people would probably like for us to come to Enid.
Yeah.
I think just generally we should rotate around the state.
I agree.
More than we have in the past.
I agree.
Because I know that some of the folks don't show up at a 9 o'clock meeting. We might even talk about a different time period during the day when we're off-site, because I don't think too many people are going to take off work to appear at one of our meetings, but it was maybe at 7 o'clock in the evening, they might, but that's just something we might talk about if we have it off-site. outside of Oklahoma City, so.
Well, as long as everybody's good with the 3rd, we could also, man, I don't have a pacemaker, but I thought something was going on. Woo! Man, jolted me.
Sounds like my house alarm.
We could just work with you and Commissioner Dillingham and Grondike between now and
Do a
then to see
TBA.
how they want to organize it and what makes sense, and then get
Yeah.
notice out to everybody if you want to handle it that way. But I do hear the desire to have it off-site if we can, and
I'm with
maybe
you
it'll
on
be a
that.
matter of working with our host to see if that's an undue burden or what. How about that?
Hey, and I would, as I said earlier, also like to consider a later spring meeting, maybe at the PRC again, because I know there's at least a couple of the commissioners that haven't ever seen that facility.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, well, let's just do a TBA on the venue of the meeting on the 3rd, but any other questions or discussion about the dates?
Madam Chairman, I think we probably need to go ahead and vote, but we can always amend that,
Yes.
present it to your directions.
Yeah.
So I move to approve the proposed dates as stated right now.
Second.
Commissioner Barwick?
Aye.
Commissioner Mabry?
Aye.
Commissioner Holder?
Aye.
Commissioner Zelps?
Aye.
Commissioner Dillingham?
Aye.
Commissioner Kane? Commissioner Gaddis?
Aye. All right, any new business that was not foreseen 24 hours prior to our meeting?
We have none. I will just mention real quick, if anybody's interested in reading the book that our leadership team read through, we've got some copies right here. Just get them back to us if you don't mind, because we're going to be working through them over the course of the next year as well, so.
Okay, and also the December 6th meeting has been canceled as we will not have a quorum. With all that, if no more discussion or questions, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hey, all you outdoor Oklahoma lovers. I'm J.D. Strong, Director of Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. And on behalf of our 350 employees, we want to say thank you. In this unprecedented time, there's no question that there's been a lot that has confronted us as a society and as Oklahomans. But in the midst of those dark clouds, there's been a silver lining. People have been getting outdoors in droves. And because of that, we are able to see increased license sales, increased support for all things wildlife and fisheries conservation, and we're able to continue to host events like this state FFA shooting competition that we have going on behind us today. So without that support, without those license sales, we would not be able to put on stuff like this. If you didn't know it, we're a non-appropriated agency, so we get no help from the state legislature or taxpayers. So we depend heavily on those license sales as well as the sale of sporting equipment, guns, ammunition, fishing poles, bows and arrows, you name it. All of those purchases go towards us being able to get the next generation engaged in hunting and shooting sports, as well as other outdoor adventures, fishing, that sort of thing. So on behalf of the Department of Wildlife, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for bringing us this silver lining in the midst of all these dark clouds that we faced as a result of COVID. Get out there and continue to support wildlife conservation through the purchase of your hunting and fishing license. And don't forget, our outdoors are always open. Hey, all you outdoor Oklahoma lovers. I'm J.D. Strong, Director of Oklahoma Department